Thank you all for joining us. There's more to come. For those who are new to the channel, we would ask that you like and subscribe and just support what we're doing.
Yes, sir. You just found it. Intercourse with you. Let's chat.
Welcome to the Intercourse Show. I am your host, Mr. B. We are having another reaction video, and today's topic is going to be Jada Pinkett and Will Smith's marriage. There is another trendy thing happening right now about Jada Pinkett hitting the circuit, selling her new book. And it seems like every time she sells a new book, she throws Will under the bus. So what we're going to do is just kind of analyze some of the feedback, some of the conversations that's happening about Jada Pinkett and about Will Smith's marriage. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing in, of course, our regulars. We got Miss Amber Giselle in the building, and she's going to weigh in as well. But first, we're going to listen to this commentary made by Matt Walsh, who I think did an excellent job summarizing this issue. And I think there's some nuggets that we can extract from what Matt is saying about the matter. I think Matt says some things that, to me, speaks volumes about their situation. And I think there's things that we can learn from his feedback. But I also want to invite the voice of a woman. I also want to invite, different people to the conversation, because I think sometimes we look at these situations and we judge them prematurely because we assume we can never find ourselves in a similar situation. And while it's easy for us to bash Will, and it's easy for us to bash that relationship, there are things we can learn to avoid being, victimized in that relationship in the same way that he is. And so I'm listening to this with an open ear and an open heart, and I pray that you guys do the same. Without any further ado, we will go ahead and shift the conversation and hear what this man has to say, and then we'll react to it. So let's go.
Marriage role models, older couples who have been together for a while, navigated many of the sorts of challenges that you are facing or will face, and have maintained and strengthened their bond through it all. It's important to find people like this, and hopefully your own parents can provide that example. If not them, then maybe another relative or a friend or someone else. Unfortunately, there aren't many public figures who can fill this role for you. If you're looking for a roadmap to a healthy marriage, the celebrity community isn't the place to find it, but they can still be of some help. There aren't many people in public life who can serve as positive role models for married couples, but there are plenty who can be negative role models. They can show you, they can't show you which way to go, but they can show you which way you should not go. You can observe them and how they behave and endeavor to do the opposite of whatever they're doing. When it comes to negative role models, the good news and also the bad news is that the supply is endless. But perhaps there is no famous married couple on earth that has been more helpful in this regard than Will and Jada Smith. That's with all due respect to Prince Harry and Meghan and John and Giselle Fetterman and Kim Kardashian and whoever she's married to this month. Will and Jada are without a doubt the greatest negative marriage example you could ever hope to find. If you want a happy and healthy marriage, all you really have to do is just do nothing that Will and Jada do and everything they don't do. They're like a lighthouse in a storm, except you always want to go the opposite direction from wherever this lighthouse is pointing. That brings us to the latest in the Will and Jada horror story. The couple has made it back into the news this week, with Jada now on the interview circuit to promote her upcoming memoir, which is called Worthy. I don't know who would ever purchase a Jada Pinkett Smith memoir, but I do know that if I was in charge, I would keep a database of everyone who purchases the book, and I would immediately and permanently revoke their voting rights. These are the kinds of fresh ideas we need in Washington, but we're not getting. But that's a topic for another day. In any case, Jada made a personal announcement in her memoir, which came out in her interview with NBC this week. Watch.
There are so many surprising things in the book, but the thing that surprised me the most, that I actually had to reread it because I said, is this true?
Right.
Was that in 2016, you and Will decided that you were going to live completely separate lives.
Yes.
It was not a divorce on paper,
Right.
but it was a divorce. So from the year 2016, which is 7 years ago now,
Yes.
y'all have been apart.
Yeah.
She can't even hide her glee. She's so happy about it. She's so happy about having being estranged from her husband. Now, first of all, someone needs to tell the interviewer that we don't need the clapping sound effects while she's asking questions. But as for Jada, she goes on to explain that she's living a completely separate life from Will and that they split up in 2016 because they were exhausted from trying. The words of a true hero. This revelation is especially humiliating for Will Smith because everyone immediately drew the connection to the slap heard around the world. And now we know that Will not only embarrassed himself in a desperate attempt to impress his wife, but that he did all this for a woman who'd left him 5 years earlier. Keep my wife's name out of your effing mouth, he famously declared, but apparently that woman doesn't really consider herself to be his wife. Jada, could have kept their unique marital arrangement to herself, shielding Will from further embarrassment. But then again, she has a memoir to sell. So she decided to keep the separation a secret until she figured out a way to monetize it. Of course, this is just the latest in a long line of ritual public humiliations Jada has subjected her estranged husband to. There was another one very recently when she posted an Instagram video of her and Tupac in the 90s dancing to Will Smith's song, Parents Just Don't Understand. And it's well known that Jada still pines for her deceased lover, Tupac. So this was seen by many, accurately, I think, as a not so subtle dig at the man that she is still technically married to. And, that's what she does. She finds little ways to twist the knife. It's her specialty. There's, for example, this video from a few years ago where she decides to film herself not respecting Will or his boundaries. Watch.
Steph Farrell is coming to the table. She's going to be at the red table. Would you say she has been instrumental in you and I redefining our relationship?
I would say don't just start filming me without asking me.
Oh my goodness.
If you could film me.
Sam, come help us again, please. I'm still dealing with foolishness.
Don't just.
Would you say that she helped us heal the hurts that we caused between one another?
My social media presence is my bread and butter, okay? So you can't just use me for social media and not, don't just start rolling. I'm standing in my house. Don't just start rolling.
That's pretty rough to watch. I think for obvious reasons. I will say, I can't imagine my own wife. I'm just trying to imagine my own wife, first of all, filming me without even asking me first. She wouldn't do that. But then if she started filming me and I said, please don't film me, and she did it anyway, and then she posted it on the internet, I would be furious. Fortunately, I'm not married to a woman who would ever do that, but this is Jada Pinkett Smith. Pretty rough, but of course, nothing, since we're on the subject, we cannot avoid what is possibly one of the cringiest videos of all time. Nothing can possibly compare to the infamous Red Table Talk where Jada pulled Will in to have a conversation about the time when she cheated on him. Let's all relive that cringe together.
You, during that time, launched into an interaction with August. What do you feel like you were looking for?
I just wanted to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
It had been so long since I felt good.
Right.
And it was really a joy to just help heal somebody.
Yeah.
I think that has a lot to do with my codependency, which is another thing that I had to learn to break in this cycle. Just that idea of needing to fix and being drawn to people that need help, whether it's your health or whether it's your addictions. There's something about that childhood trauma that feels as though it can be fixed through fixing people.
Man, still tough to watch every time. I mean, imagine your wife cheats on you and you say to her, how could you do this? I'm broken. I'm devastated. And she says, well, I just wanted to feel good. Oh, okay. Well, if that was your reason, but I wasn't sure what your reason was, but if it was that, then never mind. And that was actually somehow the least cringy segment of that video, but the whole thing is brutal. The cuckolded Will Smith describes his wife's affair as launching into an interaction. Why did you launch into an interaction with that man? And for her part, his wife shows no remorse and in fact congratulates herself on her infidelity by claiming that she slept with another man in order to help heal him. Then to add another terrible insult to an already grievous injury, she declares that it makes her feel good to fix people. Yet her own husband is sitting there broken into 1,000 pieces. And all this frustration would build for several years until the moment when Will set his career on fire by taking it all out on Chris Rock at the Oscars. Jada, meanwhile, sits there and watches, making no attempt to stop him from walking up on stage to commit assault in front of a live audience, and also makes no attempt after the fact to defend him or come to his aid in any way. She is, in short, as I've already dubbed her, the worst wife in America, and Will Smith is, without question, the most pathetic husband in America, which is a sad reality, especially when you consider that before his wife got to work exposing and humiliating him, Will Smith was, it's easy to forget now, he was perhaps the most polished, clean-cut, marketable, seemingly together star in Hollywood. Now he's a laughingstock thanks to his wife. A good wife builds her man up, a bad one breaks him down. And Will Smith is nothing at this point, if not broken down. That's why they are such a powerful, albeit negative example. They reveal pretty much every facet of a bad relationship. They embody everything that a married couple can do wrong. And they model one thing in particular, and that is the need for respect in a marriage, especially a man's need for respect. Jada has clearly never respected her husband, and he has never demanded respect or commanded it, most of all. And the end result is heartache and humiliation. When a man feels respected at home, he'll be happy and confident and eager and ambitious. He'll want to go out and conquer the world because he feels like his wife respects him and is proud of him. You cannot put a price on that. It's impossible to describe just how important that is to a man and what it can do for him. Now, when he's deprived of that respect, it's likely to make him frustrated, temperamental, sullen, all the other things that Will Smith has become. In fact, the decline of his career and his public image precisely tracks with the decline of his marriage. The more disrespected he was by his wife, the less respectable he became. This is the way it works. The more a man is respected, the more respectable he becomes. And the less, then the less. The good news is that it's usually pretty easy to avoid marrying a woman who doesn't respect you. All you have to do is not marry a woman who doesn't respect you, okay? It is that simple most of the time. It's possible, now it is possible that a woman might hide her inner Jada. She might present herself as wholesome, affectionate, respectful, supportive, and when she's not. But most people, most women and most people in general, don't have those talents of deception. Like Jada Pinkett Smith doesn't. I saw one clip of her and I knew everything I needed to know about her. 30 seconds is all it takes. It's hard to believe that Will didn't know. There are almost always red flags like this. And most of the time they're obvious. For example, you see this kind of thing all the time for people. If you're dating someone and that person ever does or says anything in public to intentionally make you look bad. Okay, we're not talking about just playful teasing back and forth. I'm talking about they're trying to make you look bad. They're trying to actually embarrass you. If that ever happens, that is a glaring siren telling you to leave the relationship. Like if you're a day before getting married and that happens, leave immediately. You dodged a bullet. Because the propensity to publicly belittle and disrespect you will only get worse, not better. And your woman's instinct is completely backwards of what it should be. Her instinct should be to cover you, to prop you up, to show that she's proud of you. If someone complains about you to her, she should want to defend you, not join in. A woman should brag about the man that she's with, not deliberately try to make him seem lesser in the eyes of the public. As I've said before, my wife's supportive nature was obvious to me almost from the moment I met her. And it hasn't changed in 12 years. And I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that Jada's unsupportive, resentful nature, her propensity to humiliate the people she supposedly loves, I'd be willing to bet that was all obvious, okay, to any person with eyes and ears from the moment Will met her. He ignored those warning signs, and now look at him. This is what happens. And it's why both Will and Jada Smith are today canceled. About Jada Pinkett Smith and her never-ending Will Smith humiliation tour, which has been kicked into a new gear recently with the release of her memoir. And in the memoir, she reveals even more embarrassing things about Will Smith, including the fact that she left him in 2016 after she was the one who cheated on him. And then the marriage broke up. And it's at least heavily implied that she's the one who broke it up. And So then that leads to the conclusion that Will Smith, when he did the infamous slap of Chris Rock, he was doing that in defense of a woman who's not even living with them anymore and hadn't been for years, which is even more embarrassing. So she brought that out to embarrass him again. And now we have Will Smith's response to all of this. So the New York Post has this. Will Smith has broken his silence about the bombshells dropped by his estranged wife, Jada Pinkett Smith, about their 25-year marriage. The Men in Black star 55 sent the New York Times an email saying the revelations, quote, kind of woke him up, adding that Pinkett Smith, 52, was more, quote, resilient, clever, and compassionate than he'd understood. Quote, when you've been with someone for more than half of your life, a sort of emotional blindness sets in, Smith wrote, according to the Times article published Saturday. And you can all too easily lose your sensitivity to their hidden nuances and subtle beauties. That was Will Smith's response. So after being publicly humiliated again by his apparently estranged wife, he responds by blaming himself and his emotional blindness. So he's the one who's emotionally blind. She is just ripping him to shreds in public constantly. No concern for his own emotions. But she's the one who brings him on camera to talk about her affair while he sits there, clearly like on the verge of tears, just an utterly broken man. And she doesn't notice or doesn't care, or both. And yet Will Smith says that he's the one who is emotionally blind. And then he extols Jada's hidden nuances and subtle beauties. And it's true, by the way, I don't deny that if Jada Pinkett Smith has any beauty, it is very subtle. Very, very subtle. If there's beauty there, it is it's so subtle that it's invisible. It's so subtle that it doesn't exist, that nobody can find it. But this is how he responds. And it's why, to my point last week about this, it's why Will Smith is not a victim. And I think that's an important point because it seems like the public is mostly against Jada Pinkett Smith. So maybe surprisingly enough, this based on what I've seen, this may be the only bipartisan issue left in America. This might be the only thing left that everybody agrees on all sides of every side of our fractured culture. Everyone seems to agree that Jada Pinkett Smith is an awful witch. So in a weird way, she's like bringing the country together so that everyone can just hate her. So that's kind of a service that she's providing. Maybe we should thank her for it. Maybe that's the hidden nuance and subtle beauty that Will Smith was talking about. But, and far be it for me to, try to, when we have this kind of unity, I would like to join in, but I would like to say that I think sometimes it goes too far on the other end where people talk about Will Smith like he's some sort of helpless victim who's in this abusive marriage. But what we see is that he's not a victim at all, really. I mean, Jada Pinkett Smith is an awful witch, no question about it. But Will Smith is a willing participant in his own humiliation and degradation. And I do hold him responsible for that. And now he's encouraging his estranged wife to embarrass him even more and respect him even less by responding in a way that is not respectable. So Jada Pinkett Smith is going to see his response and just despise him even more and have even less respect for him, which is not a defense of her, but it also just goes to show why Will Smith is not a victim. And this is like we talked about last week. Respect in a marriage is not just important; it's foundational, and especially for the man. The man has to feel respected in a marriage. He has to be respected in his marriage. And if there's no respect in the marriage, then it's a recipe for total collapse and disaster. Every bad thing that can happen in a marriage will happen from that starting point. I mean, that's where you get into infidelity and everything else. Oftentimes it begins there with a lack of respect. There's a calling on both ends here. So the wife is called. It is her duty and her responsibility to respect her husband and treat her husband with respect. And she has that responsibility regardless. Like it's not okay to disrespect your husband, to treat him with contempt. And you have a responsibility to respect your husband. On the other hand, not on the other hand, but on the other end of it, the husband also has a responsibility to be respectable, and to not just respectable, but to command respect. And there is a difference. I think last week when we talked about this, I said that Will Smith should demand respect in his home, or should have. It's probably too late for them. They don't even live in the same home anymore. But long ago, he should have demanded respect in his household. And if he had, maybe things would be different now. You know, but I think demand is the wrong word, because if you get to the point where you're demanding, that's already that's a sign of weakness. If you have to demand it, I want to be respected. Respect me. Now, if you feel that you need to express that and say it out loud, then you should. But that's already a sign that things are not going well, and it's a sign of it can be a sign of desperation and weakness on your end. What you should be doing as a man in your home is commanding respect. So you don't have to say it, but you're commanding with your presence in the home and the way you conduct yourself. You command it. And it's clear that Will Smith never did. So no excuse for Jada Pinkett Smith at all. No excuse for Will Smith. This is just one of those situations. In so many cases, when marriages fall apart like this, you know, sometimes you can point to one person and say, well, that person's clearly the bad guy. It's all their fault. But most of the time, you can look at both sides and say, you know, it's obvious what you did wrong here. So I think that's the case here.
Okay, so just to summarize your thoughts, I want to make sure I capture everything that you're saying. So the original question that we asked on this podcast after we watched the video was, is your partner intentionally making you look bad? And we're analyzing Will and Jada Smith's marriage. Your opinion was that she's not necessarily making him look bad, because, and even if she was, she would be justified because he first made her look bad by having this open relationship, dating both men and women allegedly on her while they were married, and essentially building a house, a multi-million-dollar house that she didn't really like, and just saying that she had to live there, even though he knew she didn't really like the multi-million-dollar house that he was building her. That's your opinion. Terrence's opinion was she isn't necessarily making him look bad. It's just that she has a lot of character flaws, and she's just being herself. He's saying that she's not intentionally trying to make him look anyway. It's just that this is how she is. You know what I mean? And that ultimately is going to make him look bad because she's just like that anyway. So that's his point of view. Your view is that he has not held her in the highest regard in the public. He has not shown himself to be one who honored her.
And no. I didn't say he didn't do that. No, I didn't say he didn't do that. You were asking about, Terrence mentioned her being a self-centered person. And I just said that I think that Will Smith could be considered self-centered as well. And then I gave, supporting allegations, I'll call them, supporting allegations as to why I think he could also be considered a self-centered person. That was that. But I do think that I do think he tried.
It sounds like you're taking up for Jada Pinkett's treatment of Will. Like you feel like she's justified to treat him the way she's treating him.
I think
that's what I'm gathering from what you said thus far.
I'm going to let you assess it the way you want. I'm not going to say yay or nay to that. I just believe that people don't do and say the things that she said for no reason. I do think that it's a lot deeper. I think that one thing I can say about Jada Pinkett, I think that she's trying to be a woke person, living a life that's not, woke standard. People that have everything seem to try to go on these extreme spiritual paths and stuff, trying to find their real purpose in life because money doesn't fill the vacancies in within them, right? And I think that uh that's where Jada is. If you listen to her talk, she is on this spiritual, I'm healing people, and I felt good because I was healing someone, and all of these things. And I just have never understood how you feel like you can heal somebody with sleeping with them. That is not how you heal someone. Um, so we can call it fake woke, but that's the path that she's on. Those are just some criticisms that I have of Jada. But in regards to her marriage, I don't think that it started off that way. I really don't. I think that she's now, like she said, living in her truth, and saying that she don't like marriage. She don't like the idea or institution of it. I don't think she ever had, based on, she's always said that she never likes that. So, but Will had in his mind, this is what he wanted, and he felt like Jada could fit that. She could check that box. He
So
wanted Jada to be the one to check the box.
So your opinion is that he brought this on himself because he chose a woman, which it is a great segue into the next question we're asking for this segment, is that because he chose a woman that didn't necessarily share his values, he valued marriage. He chose a woman that didn't value marriage. And so whatever comes of that decision is his fault.
Well, can we say she don't value marriage, but she values being dedicated to him? She's not going nowhere. They have made it perfectly clear that they're never leaving each other or getting a divorce, regardless of what.
Amber, she just went on national television and said,
Right, but I'm talking
we've been
about
living separate lives.
I'm talking about the
i.e., she went
commitment.
somewhere. They're living separate lives. She's essentially saying we're unofficially divorced. The paperwork hasn't been, signed in ink yet, but we're living separate lives. So is that in
She
a way
also
not her saying that
she
she's no longer?
she also said, if you listen to the rest of it, she also said, because I think Hoda was asking her what would happen if you found another great love, and she said, I'm not, because Will is that. That's what I'm trying to tell you. We may be living separate lives, but Will is that great love, and it's bad right now, but we're gonna work towards getting it back to where we're both comfortable. The lady said she's not leaving, and Will Smith said that he's not leaving her. It is the most
Let
jacked
me ask a
up set
question.
of rules that they're living by, but they're living by it. I
I'm
don't
gonna
get it.
ask the question, Amber. I'm gonna ask this question. This man has worked for probably close to 30 years. He's been around since like the 80s, like late 80s, early 90s, building his image to what was, for the most part, up until a few years ago, somewhat of a respectable career. Certainly an honorable one. He commanded a relatively big check. This man has put that much time into his craft. He had worked that hard to refine his craft and to be presumed as one of the biggest Hollywood stars out there. And for him to have chosen a woman who supposedly loves him, who supposedly cares about him, who has born his children, who has given birth to his children, only for her at the most inopportune times to sabotage him and make him look bad. How do you go on a live PR run to badmouth a man that you love and respect and care about? This is not the first time she insinuated he wasn't good in the bed. She insinuated that she needed to sleep with their son's friend to make her feel good because she hadn't felt good in a long time, i.e., you're not hitting the spot, homie. She was doing everything at every turn to essentially say, I settled for you. The guy I really love is Tupac. That's why I'm posting pictures of Tupac, who's been dead for 30 years. I never really liked you. Like the guy I wanted is just not here. So much so that she's encouraging their daughter to write her ex lover the note, wishing that he was back. You're telling me that woman loved and cared about that man? That's
Yeah,
how you perceive that?
I think she does love and care for him. I just don't think she's in love with him at the moment, and that's why she
Amber,
has
I'm going
said
to
and
ask
done
you
the
this
things
question
she said and
seriously.
done.
Would you ever, while you're married to one man, encourage your daughter with that man to write a note to your ex-lover who's been dead for 30 years
No,
and
and she
post
did
it
not.
online?
No, no, she didn't encourage Willow to do that. Willow wanted to do that. Now, I think that
You think
because she
a
was
little girl who
pining,
wasn't even around when she was having
because she listen, she wrote it because her mommy was sad. And so, I have a daughter who writes me letters when she, even when she gets in trouble, she writes me a letter and say, Mommy, I'm really sorry I did this, and I promise I won't do it again. And I think it was one of those types of moments where she had expressed some sadness for missing her friend, and Willow, did it. Now, I definitely wouldn't have posted it because that was inappropriate, but
was okay. So time out. So you're justifying the fact that the note was written, but it was posted by
that's
her.
not that's not a justification. That is an explanation. I'm trying
It's
to
an
read
explanation.
deeper.
But
I'm trying
my
to
question
read
is,
deeper
why would she
into
post
the
that?
why.
Okay, even if the daughter wrote her a
Because it
personal
goes
note to cheer her up, why would
right.
she post that note on
Because to
World
because
Wide
to
Web?
Jada, because to Jada, like everyone sees, that it feeds her obsession with Tupac. And I am not saying it is healthy, because it's definitely an unhealthy obsession with this dead man. That is definitely a very odd and weird thing. Missing and
Okay,
loving someone that
so
died,
my
okay.
question is what she's doing and what is being done honorable to her current husband? This is why I put you in the example. I said, take her out of it. Would
Hmm.
you would you post a letter that that your daughter wrote you to cheer you up, as you say, about another man who is
I
not her
would.
father on the World Wide Web for all people to see,
I
especially as a
wouldn't.
public figure? Would you do that?
I would not. No.
Why not?
I think that would be something a very personal, a
Yeah, but
personal
why
thing.
wouldn't you
And
do
she's a
that?
child. And she's a child. And
No, I understand, but why wouldn't you do that?
I wouldn't do that because I think that there is a thing called etiquette. And me being married and experience, some things are supposed to be personal. I 100% agree with Terrence when he said that. There are some things that should be personal. And I think I don't know if she's grieving or she's obsessed with Tupac. And I think that fed her obsession. But, that's me. I wouldn't do that because it's
Your
not
sound
proper.
sounds a little muffled. If you could adjust your mic.
See,
Say that again.
I wouldn't do it because, can you hear me better now?
Nah, yeah, for sure.
Okay. I wouldn't do it because there's a thing called etiquette, and I think that it would be improper for me to um post to the world my daughter tributing a dead friend of mine. When
An
people
ex-lover.
when people and well, I don't think they were lovers either. That's
They
what
were
makes it
lovers.
upset. No, they were not.
She had sex with Tupac and is
She didn't.
obsessed with Tupac. She was
She did
in
not. She did not have sex with Tupac. She openly says that they never did anything like that. That's why it's an obsession. She's obsessed, but she never had sex with Tupac. I think the most they did was kiss, and they didn't even like kissing each other. I'm
which makes
telling
it even
you,
worse.
I agree with you. She's obsessed with him. It
If you're
fed
right, that
her.
makes it even worse.
I agree with you. I think her obsession with Tupac is very unhealthy, and that she needs to get a handle on. But also, Tupac is such a pop. Tupac was extremely popular alive, and he's even more popular now that he has passed. And I think she likes riding the train of being someone that was so close to him. But I think I think that again, I think it's more of an obsession at this point. And
I'm
it's
asking you,
mhm.
I just want to redirect you back to the original question.
Okay.
Would you
No,
do it? Your answer is no.
I would not. No,
And you
no,
wouldn't do it because you
because it
deem that
shows.
it, time out. Would you not do it because you deem that it's inappropriate for that to be done as a married woman? Or
I
do you,
wouldn't.
go ahead.
Yes, yes, yes. That and in addition to, I'm a married woman. I'm grieving something that has nothing to do with my marriage, i.e., another man, which I am allowed to do personally. But publicly, it does not reflect well on my husband, my marriage, and my family for me to publicly grieve like this for someone who has been dead over a number of years. I don't think
Okay.
it's appropriate. No.
So now I'm gonna ask you a question. Do you believe, and I'm gonna ask you this question from a different angle. If Will Smith was your son, let's just, and we're not gonna, say who your son is, but if Will Smith was your son and you were his mother, and you had to give him advice on the type of women to choose, knowing what you know about Jada Pinkett, how she's regarded him, how she's portrayed him in the public eye, would you advise your son to choose a woman like Jada to marry?
Again, I believe back in the day, Jada, I would have
We're not
because
talking about back in the day. We're
but
talking about Jada as she is today.
but this is my answer. Jada was everything every guy ever wanted. And that's why he married her. So I can sit here and say, of course, on her best day, I want my son to have a woman who's loving, respectful, kind. She's gonna be a good mother because she's not selfish and she's helpful and she's thoughtful and she's a hardworking, person, especially for those she loves and even kind to people she doesn't know. Of course, I would encourage my son to be with a woman like that, but he's also young. He's a young man. So, am I speaking to my son who's almost 50 or 50 years old plus?
Okay. What
Where
I'm saying
and
to
hold
you
on, let
is,
me finish. Let me finish this real quick. If I'm speaking to my son at his young tender age, I would say when Jada was that age, she was all those things I just said. Now, if I'm speaking to my son who's almost 50 and who's lived a life and has made lots and lots of mistakes, son, the woman that you go for now is going to have a whole lot of baggage and she's going to say things like this one right here. So prepare yourself. So prepare
okay.
yourself.
So I'm gonna modify this hypothetical scenario I just gave you. Let's just say, as his mother, you had the ability to see in the future. So your son's young right now, but you know the fullness of the type of woman that Jada is. Taking in the good years of Jada when she was desired by all the men, and taking the latter years of Jada when she's doing what she's doing right now. That woman, just take the good with the bad, the good side and the bad things that she's done. If you knew that about a woman like Jada, would you suggest for your son, having that foresight, to marry a woman like that?
I'm not going to answer the question.
Why?
I don't like the question because as a parent, you want to shield your child from anything that's going to hurt them. But the reality is you can't. So that hypothetical is just completely unrealistic and I can't answer.
It's still gonna be
And
your
the reason
son's
why I
choice.
say,
Come on. It's
but
still gonna
that's
be
what I'm
your
saying.
son's choice.
And I also know, and no matter what no matter how I feel, it's his choice.
Okay, so
But
hear what I'm saying to you.
I hear you. The good come with the bad. So how do we know next year Will and Jada aren't going to be in love all over again like they did when they first met?
So
And
here's
would this 7 years have made a difference
I'm not
and
asking
how
you to
much they
tell me
love
what.
each other.
I'm not
No, but
asking
I'm
you to
just
tell me.
saying I'm putting my son and I'm putting my son in that shoe in the shoes and saying, okay, well, okay, I can foresee my son having this 7 years of terrible marriage, but then in 2024 and beyond, another 30 years, him and her have the most amazing marriage. Would I still pick my son having a lifelong partner? Yeah, I guess I
Okay,
would,
let
because
me
that seven
clarify.
years may not compare to the amount of good that come from their union. That's why I don't like the question. That's why I didn't want
Hold
to
on.
answer it, because I don't like the
Let me
question.
clarify the question. I understand that you giving your son advice is not you making the choice for him. See, that's how life works. Even in the Bible, it talks about this, right? God gives us advice. He says you have two choices. You can choose life or you can choose death. Here's my advice: choose life, just in case you don't know what to choose. But then he doesn't impose his choice upon you. You get to choose what you want to choose. I'm asking you, as a parent who have raised your kid, if you can view the type of woman that this person is, your son presents to you a woman that he's interested in and ask for your advice, and you had the foresight because you've seen her type before to see who she is today and who she will be tomorrow. And let's just say that foresight, is your understanding of how Jada has carried herself in her marriage with Will Smith. Would you select a woman like that for your child to get entangled with? Would you advise? I'm not telling you, would you make the choice for him? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, would you pick that type of woman to present to him as a wife? Yes or no?
That's not a yes or no question, and I'm not answering it because I don't like it. Sorry. I don't like the question. It's loaded. Don't like the question. Sorry.
So you wouldn't necessarily tell your son not to marry a woman like Jada.
People are flawed. It is wrong to throw people away because they're not perfect.
I'm
People
not
are
talking about,
flawed.
this is not you.
No, you said, if I had the foresight because I have seen this type of person before. So me, being me, looking and understanding what foresight is and observation and experience and what I have experienced, I cannot properly advise my son to choose anything. It's his choice.
Okay.
Would I say him to choose a woman like her? Again, in the moment where he's about to choose her, if she's amazing, I'm going to say choose her. Whether my
Mhm.
foresight says that she'll be different in 10 years, because a 22-year-old woman and a 32-year-old woman is a different person. And then 42 is different and 52 is different. And dang on sure after 60, she's different. So it's unfair to say that people are flawed. I am not the same person. I'll be 36 in a couple weeks. I'm definitely not the same person I was when I was 26, and I know I'm not the same person I was when I was 16. So if the few years of my life that weren't the best, if someone were to look at me and say, "Would you choose her to be, your wife?" She's flawed and she made some mistakes, but the remainder of her life is awesome. I mean, what you can't gauge that. You cannot gauge what life experience throws at people and how they handle it or how they change. A
Okay.
perfect example, mental health is just becoming a thing when people have been suffering in silence for generations,
Okay.
right?
Here's my views. I understand your point of view. You don't think that it would be wise for you to even speculate on what you would tell your son in that scenario. My view is this, in terms of what I would advise my child. I would advise my child to be a judge of character. I think Matt Walsh made some great points in his commentary. He has said that it would take him 30 seconds to know that this is not a woman that should be selected for marriage, because she has shown that she has no regard for how she portrays her husband. he said some points that to me, I think are spot on. One of the points that he mentioned is the fact that a woman's natural instinct should be to nurture and protect the image and the well-being of their family. That's both how your man looks, because you don't want to be looked as the woman who's married to a fool, how your children look, and the actual experience in the home. I believe there's a lot of truth in that. I believe a woman as a nurturer should instinctually want to protect the image of her spouse. And what he said that I think goes over a lot of men's heads is that they select men, or I'm sorry, they select women that are not mindful of their image, that are openly disrespectful to them in the public square, that do have poor character, right? That doesn't demonstrate good judgment. And if I had to make a selection in terms of the type of life that I would want my child to live long after I'm gone, I would not advise that they choose someone who would be a contentious partner for them. I would not choose someone who would cause them a lot of stress. I have observed on my own by watching that Red Table Talk of his interaction, asking that woman and that look on his face. I would never, if I could choose that for my child. So yes, I agree with you that it's ultimately my child's decision. It's every man's decision who they choose to be with. It's every woman's decision who they choose to be with. But I think the reason why I'm in my child's life is to guide them, to help them, to instruct them, to advise them. That's the purpose of a parent. And as a parent, I will give you the advice from a place of love, because my ultimate goal is to see you win. My ultimate goal is to see you have peace. My ultimate goal is to see you prosper, not just in your personal life, but in your relationships with your children, with your family. That's what I would want for my family, my own offspring. That's exactly what I would want. So for me to choose a woman that is contentious, that has no regard or respect for my child, to me, I would be doing my child a disservice by not steering them away from a woman like that. Now, that's not to say that Jada Pinkett is totally a bad person. I think she has some flaws. Jada Pinkett has had some accomplishments. This is not to throw Jada Pinkett away, as you're saying. She's a human being, and we're all human beings. We're all evolving. We all have issues. We all have problems. We're all working through stuff. This isn't to bash. This, to me, is a deliberate effort that's being made to misrepresent and disrespect her spouse. And the mere fact that she would choose to go about it in the way that she's going about it, to me, says a lot about her character. And because I view her as a poor judge of character, I would not choose a person with such character for my offspring. Now, I think it's tactful how you avoided the question, because I think you have the propensity to just defend the actions of wild and wayward women who are moving in a way that's disrespectful. Granted, I can see where you're coming from, where you say, if she married a man that's got, you know, some other tendencies that is not in line with what she thought she was signing up for, my heart goes out to her. I wouldn't wish that upon her. But I think there's more amicable ways for you to walk away from that situation and preserve the integrity of that man's image, because he is still the father of your children, and preserve your own self-respect, right? And preserve your household as a whole, than to go about it in the manner that she's handling it. So in the same way, I don't think Will is a flawless person. I've observed parts of his character that I'm not fond of. So to me, Will is not absent of blame. I'm simply saying, if I had to analyze a marriage, would I want that for myself? No. Would I want that for my children? No. You feel what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, for people who's watching this, they're going to formulate their own opinions, as I'm sure they have already. But if I'm asking you a question like that, I think it's a bit disingenuous for you to say that you would want your child to be in a relationship with a contentious woman that would cause him stress and discord. And that's all I see if I'm just looking at what I see in that situation. Now, that does not mean that totally encompasses the fullness of their relationship in all the years that they've been married. But as I am able to judge it right now, just taking a snapshot of what's going on today and what has gone on in the past, from this woman sleeping with this dude's with their son's friend in their house, and then like saying that she wanted to heal him when cross-examined about it on live television, to the total regard of his boundaries, where he said, please don't record me in my own house. We didn't discuss this ahead of time, and she does it anyway and post it, to the obsession with her other lover while she's married to you. That to me is a woman with poor judgment, poor character, and really who doesn't really care about the person she's married to. So why would I ever want somebody like that who would have those traits for my child? I
Can I
think
ask
that's
a question?
Go ahead.
Can I ask a question? Embarrassment is embarrassed. Okay, let me rephrase. Nobody wants their child to experience that type of negativity or that kind of public hurt,
So why are
right?
you conflicted about what advice you would give your child?
I'm not conflicted. I said I don't like the question. I'm not conflicted. You cannot predict what another person is going to do.
Mhm.
You're looking at Jada Pinkett at 50 something years old, and you have no idea what she looked like at 22, 23 when she got married. That would be the person that you would speak to when you're giving the advice to someone. That's why I think your question is loaded and not a good question. Well, you were speaking about character. There's a lot of people who think that disrespect is not just disrespect is disrespect, just like embarrassment is embarrassment. Okay. You can be extremely disrespectful to someone, cheat on them, and look them in the face very calm and say, listen, I love you, but I cheat because it's how I relieve stress. And I just want you to know that you're my wife and I'm not going anywhere, but I am going to see other people from time to time. That is
Is he doing this
still
because he's
disrespect.
cheating on her?
Wait a minute. No,
That's such a good question.
I'm giving an example. The person delivering that message believes that how they are saying it and presenting it is not disrespectful, but in reality it is. So you cannot predict these. You can't predict these things. Disrespect is disrespect. People are going to be people. Of course, if we could shield our children from every hurtful thing that we can think of course we do that, but we cannot. That's not the reality. And you want to judge her character by who she is today. And I think all of us, if the lens was turned on us, everyone would be canceled. I think every last one of us would be canceled if someone put a microscope up to our life. That's what I think. I think the lady is living her truth. It is absolutely untraditional and it is nothing like what we believe. I think she's absolutely obsessed with Tupac in an unhealthy way, but she feels that it's healthy. I think that she has severe mental health issues that she needs to address.
I agree there.
Um, that needs to be addressed by a professional. I think that she's actually trying, and I think it's not meshing over well with the public because I
Okay,
think
so
most of her issues need to be that stuff needs to stay private. But in today's
okay,
time,
so let me
hold
ask you
on,
a question.
transparency is a big deal. So people think when they're transparent that everyone is going to receive them, but it's not coming across like that
Mhm.
to the public.
So I have another question for you. How important do you perceive respect to be? Why is it important to respect your spouse in your own view? Because I think there's a disconnect, and I'll kind of give you some context for why I'm asking this question. I think there's a disconnect between a person's understanding about how important respect is. And that's on both sides. A man needs to respect his lady. A lady needs to respect his man, her man. But I think the feeling of being disrespected, humiliated in public, I think for men trade on the currency of respect. This is what that's the point that the man alluded to in the video. He said he thrived in his career when he was respected, and as his respect declined, his career started to decline. That's an amazing point. That is such an astute observation. And I don't know that there's enough done to convey to, especially people in our community, how important it is to respect your spouse, how important it is to always portray your spouse in a positive light. I don't think it's okay for us to portray ourselves in a manner where the rest of the world who we are competing with view us as a person that shouldn't be respected. Men trade on the currency of respect. A man who's disrespected, whether by his wife or by anybody else, is viewed as, a sucker, a person that could be played with like that. And most men, there are men who will literally kill on the principle of the fact that someone disrespected them, disrespected their family, disrespected their wife, disrespected their children, disrespected their parents. Men go to war for respect. When you disrespect a man, they will go to war. Respect is not something that's like, oh, y'all take a little of it. No, like it's an essential part in a relationship. It's essential. It's not like just like, I think people need air to breathe. Men need to feel respected. For them to be any type of respectable man, they need to feel respected. Now, that's not to say that all men, right, know how to garner respect properly. That's part of the evolution of maturation. That's part of who's mentoring you. That's part of what's your value system, whether or not God is present in your life, right? And it's a work in progress for men to earn their respect, because that's what we have to do. We have to earn our respect everywhere we go. So as a woman, if you don't take seriously the need for that man to be respected, you are doing that man a great disservice. You are sending him into the world as a broken man, and a broken man is a dangerous situation for everybody involved. So why is it important to respect your spouse? And I think I just gave some insight to help, hopefully, women understand that respect is an essential part needed in a relationship. And in the same way, men need to understand that they need to show respect to their woman too. There needs to be communication and understanding, right? A woman don't want to be made to look bad, to be made to look crazy. So you got to make sure that you're not portraying your woman in a certain way. And in the same way, the men need to understand that they need to choose a woman that's going to portray them in a respectable manner. And whenever we compromise on those two things, you find yourself in these destructive relationships. I don't know if you've ever seen the Blueface and what's the other girl? The little girl's name? Blueface, and what's her name again? Well, he's a rapper called Blueface, and he's dating this lady, and they're constantly fighting. They're constantly at odds with each other. And, it's just clear and evident that relationship is a little up in the air. Now, it's their relationship. They're going to do with it as they see fit. You know what I'm saying? But I don't get the sense that there's respect for each other in that relationship, but it works for them. They want to do that, and that's what's being portrayed in the public eye. But for most people, they want some level who want some level of peace in their life. They don't want any situation that makes them look bad. They don't want a relationship that's contentious. So a man cannot be disrespected constantly by a person he's going home to. He can't. And think that it's going to bode well. Now, you there's plenty of people who disrespect their spouse, but it doesn't end up well. It doesn't end up with them living happily ever after. You know what I'm saying? It goes left. And I'm just simply saying that there's people who can learn about the importance of respect, taking the time out to understand how to address your partner, how important that person's image is in the public square. You know, like this isn't like a, you know, something to take lightly. You know, you always want to make sure that you're showing someone that you value them and their image, right? You don't want to paint your person in a bad light, especially in the public. So while I understand a lot of the points that you've made, I just can't really make room or justify the disrespect that I feel like is being shown. If Will was outside philandering around, doing his thing with both men and women, and that made Jada look bad, that's disrespect. I wouldn't condone that for him to do that to her either. I wouldn't. Because if he knows that he can't really fulfill that requirement in their relationship, then why even get in a relationship? Just y'all just hang
Because it's
out.
image. Because it makes your image look good.
How?
It
You
makes your
think Will
image look
Smith's
good
image
when
looks
you
good right
have.
now?
No, it did. It used to look good with Jada in it. You can't deny that. You can't deny that at one point they were couple goals. So what he wanted it to look like, it did look like. We're just now seeing that that's a false reality. That's not the case. And I don't even believe that their relationship has always been bad. I believe their relationship was great at one point.
Hey,
I
listen,
think. Hmm.
what I would say about that is you do have a point. I mean, this is who he chose. Now, he chose this woman, but I think the reason why I feel like this needs to be addressed is because whether we like it or not, we are visual learners. Our children are visual learners. What we see portrayed on the television ends up being imparted in our children. There are a lot of people who follow these trends, who follow these celebrities, and who treat them like they're gods, and who emulate and act exactly like these people act. I believe specifically in the Black community, this is an issue that exists in the ways that Black men and Black women relate to each other. We see like women openly being disrespectful to a man, or we see a man being degrading towards a woman, and we perceive that that's how we're supposed to act. And then in actuality, it just creates more division, more broken homes, more higher incarceration rates, more dysfunction, and we're suffering as a community as a result of these things not being addressed, because no one is pointing people towards God, or no one is actually, you know, having the conversations that they need to have. We're just kind of seeing these things like that's how they're supposed to go. And then we're like living them in our own lives and acting like this is okay. It's not okay. You see what I'm saying? And you know, if we are going to talk about these things, it's not to bash. I don't have an interest in bashing Jada. I think she has had her own life experiences. I don't know what her childhood and experience was. I'm sure she's had her own traumas and things that she had to overcome. She's a human being. I'm not saying this is the end of her life, like she can't correct or get mental you know, help, you know, for whatever it is she may be feeling or experiencing in this moment of her life. This isn't to say to throw Jada away because she's not worthy of being on this earth or anything like that. It's not. And it's also not to totally bash Will, because I think there's a lot of men who's like Will Smith. They're not as public, But a lot of men go home to a contentious wife who disrespect him at every turn that they get, who violate them and portray them in a negative light. A lot of men
But
go home to that.
I honestly don't think that being contentious is something that just in your character. I think that you have to be pushed to be that way. We're all sold the same dream. Men just hold on to it longer than women do. I don't understand why, because the reality of holding up in the relationship is
Explain that. What do you mean we're all sold the same dream, but men
we're
hold on to
all
it a little
sold
longer
that
than women?
I think we're all sold the same dream about marriage and family and what it's supposed to look like. But the reality of it is that the woman is responsible for holding it up and holding it together, and it's an exhausting feat for any woman. And most women, I think that's why most women go file for divorce because they realize that
80%,
I'm a
yeah.
gl- I'm a glorified servant in this home, and I what I think and feel don't really matter. You know, I'm responsible for taking care of everyone while my husband can go be mindless. You know, I can go and I have to do all of these things, you know, and feel like I'm not important and like I'm not a true human being because I have to take care of every single person except myself. And if I ever if at any point I want to take care of myself, I'm gonna be looked at as self-centered, selfish, or anything. And so women let go of the dream when they realize that the man, he's living the dream. He's getting a woman who's beautiful, getting a woman who's gonna bear children. Like that's not hard enough. Take care of them, raise them, educate them properly, make sure they're not, you know, going into the world being, you know, bad people. While the man just gets to absorb all of that positivity where she's giving and being drained of. So
And she gets no benefit
I
from the
don't think
presence of the man?
contention. I don't think that's. I'm just saying. I don't think contention is a character thing initially. There are some people who are just that way, but I don't think majority of women who become contentious are like that. I think they're tired. I do. I think it's something that happens when you realize that this dream that you were sold is not real. It changes you and you begin to rebel from it. And that's where the contention comes from. You know, to specifically say, I don't like marriage based off what Jada said, I don't like marriage or the institution or what it symbolizes. That's a perfect example of complete rebellion against the dream we were sold. I don't think she was always like that, or she wouldn't have gotten married. I think something changed her. Just my thoughts.
I mean, this conversation can go on for days, because I think we touch a number of different topics here. But I think for those who are listening, I think it's important to extract certain things. I think in both sides of the fence, whether you're a male or a female, you have to first identify what you value before you choose a mate. I think if you value peace, peace of mind, if you value um, living a quiet, prosperous life, then you have to analyze who you're inviting to live that life with. You have to pay attention to people's character. You have to pay attention to how people communicate with you, how they talk to you, how they treat you in good times and bad times. You can't just kind of like look over that as an aside. You can't overlook major red flags that indicates what you can expect from the person you're choosing to partner with. I tell, you know, I have sisters, I have daughters. I tell them all the time, if a man is putting hands on you and beating you down, says you can't overlook that. That's what he's about. That tells you it's likely that in the future, that man, if he's unhappy with you, it is a high probability he's going to put hands on you. And if I care about you and wouldn't want you to experience being beat on by a man, I would tell you to steer clear of a man who shows those type of tendencies. In the same way, if I'm advising a young man about what type of woman to be with, if a woman is contentious and causes you stress and cusses you out and disrespects you and and portrays you negatively in the public light and brings drama to your doorstep, and your value is to have a peaceful home that you can run away to as a place of refuge from the crazy world you got to go compete in every day, then I would advise you to steer clear of a woman like that, because that's not ultimately going to give you the peace of mind that you seek. So I think as it comes to determining what kind of life and who you actually choose to spend your life with, you have to first sit with yourself and define for yourself what you value, what you want. Because until you do that, then you're literally throwing darts at the wall. You're guessing. You haven't said, I don't want this. So that means you'll accept that because you haven't determined that you don't want it. Right? And it's not, wrong for you to sit down and take inventory of who you are, whose you are, i.e., a child of God, and say, well, God, this is what I value. This is what the man was saying. If you are about to walk down the aisle and this person shows you an indicator that they have the propensity to violate you, disrespect you, and, mismanage you, that's not something you overlook. If you got to run from that altar, run. And I don't think that's bad advice. I actually think that's sound advice. It's actually advice that led me to take on this show, because I think there's not enough good advice. A lot of times people haven't had the proper counsel. They haven't had the proper mentors. They haven't had, the parental advice or guidance to know what to look for in their mates. Some people just didn't have the luxury of having two parents who had a functional marriage. So in a way, they're just kind of winging it. And I think that's why it's important to seek out mentors. Find a couple who has a relationship, a long relationship that they've worked at, that is working, that is positive, and use them as mentors to know what to look for. Because if it wasn't modeled for you in your own house, you need to find the inspiration from somewhere. You need the guidance, you need the coaching, you need the training to know how to build that vision and how to live that vision. Right? And without us having these conversations and without us really kind of encouraging each other to seek out these answers before you choose somebody, all we have is this continuing broken situation that is very prevalent in the Black community. I think the divorce rate's above 50%. You know what I'm saying? We are at odds. There's a high incarceration rate as a result. There's all sorts of brokenness. And, what is the solution? If not to humble ourselves and to seek God to mend some of those areas that are broken in our lives. This isn't an attack on a gender per se. It's not all women's fault. It's not all men's fault. But we both have the responsibility to be good judges of character, to take the time to assess, like, what is good for me and what is not good for me. That's what I would advise anybody who is listening to this particular podcast and listening to this particular message, is make sure you take the time to identify what you value and make sure you are disciplined in terms of who you decide to share your life with, because you only get to live the life one time. So you got to decide if you want to live it pleasantly or if you want to live this life where, there's stress and peace, because that leads to cutting your life short. I know I've just spoke for an extremely long time. I will give you the last word before we wrap up. Is there something you want to say?
No, I think you pretty much summed it up. I do think when you are seeking a partner, character is a big thing. But also when you are seeking to have a long-term relationship, real mentorship before you make that leap is necessary. So we shouldn't overlook that in the future. And I think that would assist with people seeking to have a traditional marriage and what that looks like. Um, I do have something I just thought about. You know, we all discuss how different we are as people and how all of our needs are and interests are different, but we expect for one system to work for everyone. Maybe that's not quite realistic, but I do think that is a perfect guide. It's specifically if God says do it this way, then I would say it's a perfect guide. But probability wise, I think the marriage rate looks the way that it looks because everyone is different. And what we want to be the perfect way, it doesn't work for everyone. Those are my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you all for joining us. There's more to come. For those who are new to the channel, we would ask that you like and subscribe and just support what we're doing. We definitely want to have the conversation to build, uplift, and encourage people. And that's sort of the heart behind this show. We thank you guys for taking your time to join us for this discussion, and we ask for you to weigh in. Have a blessed day.